Hi all, welcome and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I want to share an incredibly tragic story with you that took place in West Virginia back on December 8th of 2020. I've been wanting to cover the story on my channel, but more and more true crime stories pop up every day, and it's often difficult to decide which ones to cover. So, I go with my gut. And today, my gut tells me to cover this one. I think it's because I think it's an important story to talk about, but also because I think I'm finally ready to say what I think about it. You may or may not have heard of it, but it's about a mother who murdered her 3 biological children and 2 stepchildren before setting their house on fire and taking her own life. Just the incredible magnitude of her crime is difficult to wrap my head around, let alone all the details that have come out about how she carried it all out and why she chose to do it. I think I've processed in my mind as much as I can, so I'm going to share it with you, and maybe you can help me process it some more. According to police reports, 25-year-old Oreanna Myers and her husband, Brian Baumgardner, were having transportation issues after their vehicle was involved in a crash. So, Brian went to stay with a family member during the week in order to make sure he could get a ride to work every day, leaving Oreanna to care for their 3 sons and Brian's 2 sons from his previous marriage alone. According to police, they were able to tell from the text messages that Oreanna sent to her husband that the fact that he wasn't home all week was causing a lot of problems between them. Then they say, on Sunday, December 6th, after Brian left groceries at their home for their family and left for his relative's house for the week, Oreanna decided she had had enough. So, they say she sent him a text saying, "You'll have nothing to come back to but a corpse. No one cares. Why should I?" Myers texted her husband, "Money will come and go. Once I go, there's no replacing me. I beg and cry for help, but never get it. It's my mental health that needs tending to. Help me. I do not care anymore." Now, before I continue, I want to point out 2 things. One, after investigating this case, police found that there had been no prior treatment for mental illness for Oreanna. And 2, police did not share details of any response Brian may have had to Oreanna's alarming text. Then, 2 days later, on Tuesday, December 8th, all hell broke loose. News reports say that a surveillance camera on her son's school bus captured Oreanna with a big red line drawn across her face under her eyes as she picked up 2 of her sons from the school bus. The audio recording captured her son asking her if she was bleeding, and her telling him no, she drew it there. The bus driver also noticed that she didn't have her 2 younger sons with her when she picked her boys up, as she normally did. About an hour later, police received a 911 call about a house fire at their home. When firefighters arrived on the scene around 4 p.m., they say the house was entirely engulfed in flames. Once the fire was contained enough in order for police to search around the home, Oreanna's body was found near a picnic table in the rear of the home, with a shotgun next to her body and a bullet in her head. After the fire was put out, the bodies of 4 of the boys were located inside the home. The 5th child was found among the home's debris 4 days later. It was determined that each of the 5 boys had been shot in the head with a shotgun, the same shotgun found next to Oreanna's body. Now, at this point in the story, this incredible tragedy appears that it could be the result of a mental illness that was plaguing Oreanna, but had gone undiagnosed and untreated. And it very well may be. I'm not a mental health professional, and I am in no way qualified to diagnose anyone's mental illness. But I'm going to walk a fine line here as I go through the rest of the evidence the police found between having compassion for someone who may have been battling severe mental illness and someone who was just evil and blamed it on mental illness. The reason why I need to do this is because I've known many people who have suffered from various degrees of mental illness in my lifetime. I know people who have suffered with uncontrollable symptoms that literally paralyzed them to the point where they couldn't function without proper medications, all the way up to people who are just devious and mental and hurt people for pleasure. The former, I have compassion for. The latter, I don't. But, in the eyes of medical professionals, it's all considered mental illness, which it is, I agree. But it's different. To me, someone suffering from a complete mental break from reality who commits a crime such as this because they have no capability of rational thought or reasoning is much different than someone who commits a crime such as this because they have no care or compassion for the lives of others and they act out of anger or resentment to punish another person. To me, two very different types of mental illness resulting in the same outcome. So, because I'm not qualified to determine whether or not Oreanna actually suffered from any sort of mental illness, I'm only left to determine what I think happened based on the evidence presented. Which leaves me with a ton of questions. The day of the murders, Oreanna texted her husband and told him she left something for him in their vehicle at the house. Police say they found a note on the floorboard of the vehicle addressed to Brian and a Ziploc bag taped to one of the vehicle's mirrors containing 3 more notes titled, "To whomever finds this first, My confession, and will." The letter to Brian read, "XOXO, I'm so sorry, Brian. I was not strong enough for you or this family. My head is so, expletive. I'm sorry for my evil crime. I was not strong enough to fight these demons. Snap, crunch, boom. So depressed, heart numb, soul completely shattered. I'm sorry I failed you. I'm sorry I failed our handsome boys. I am so sorry I was not strong enough." Signed, OAM. To whomever finds this first read, "To whomever finds this first, you'll need to call Brian Baumgartner. He is husband and father. You'll need to call Raven, for she is mother of Sean and Riley. If someone would please call my mother, tell her I'm sorry. This is no one's fault but my own. My demons won over me, and there's no going back. Sorry I wasn't strong enough. Thank you. XOXO. Signed, OAM." The one titled My Confession read, "I'd shot all of the boys in the head. I'd set the house on fire. I'd shot myself in the head. I'm sorry. Mental health is serious. I hope one day someone will help others like me. Mental health is not to joke about or to be taken lightly. When someone begs, pleads, cries out for help, please help them. You just might save a life or more lives. Thank you." Signed, OAM. Police did not reveal the contents of the note titled Will. Now, I want to go back to the first text evidence police said they obtained that told them that the situation was causing tension between Oreanna and Brian as the week went on. And remember, these are just my thoughts based on what I know. Oreanna does not like the fact that Brian has gone all week, and she's left home to care for the 5 boys alone. She's sending him texts telling him that she isn't happy about the situation throughout the week, but there's no information leading me to believe that anything was done about it. No details about Brian coming home because he was concerned about her text to him. Then she sends her final straw text to him after he leaves again on December 6th, telling him that he'll have nothing to come home to but a corpse, and she doesn't care anymore. If this text message is accurate and verbatim, it's very telling, because she said he'd have nothing to come home to but a corpse, singular, not plural. So, if he received this text and took it literally, she was threatening to kill herself. But there are no reports that Brian was alarmed by this, so he dropped everything and raced home. which leads me to believe that he wasn't concerned, and he didn't believe she'd do it. Maybe she threatened to do it in the past, or maybe she was threatening him with it the whole week prior, and maybe he thought she just wanted attention. So, she either did it before for attention, or they had problems in their marriage, and he just didn't care anymore either. She does say that in her text. No one cares anymore. Why should I? Cares about what? Her? 'Cause why would she mean the boys? Then she says, money will come and go. Once I go, there's no replacing me. In other words, she resents that he's putting work before her. I beg and cry for help, but never get it. So, doesn't sound like they have the best marriage. Does she mean she asks for help with the boys? Or for her mental health? It's my mental health that needs tending to. Help me. I do not care anymore. Could she be saying that she's been trying to get help for her mental disorder and no one believes her? Sure. Doesn't sound like Brian believes her too much. But, on the surface, this sounds like a pretty desperate plea for help to me. So if she's desperate for help, and she's reaching out for it, that's a good thing. She should. But I'm left wondering, was he the only person she reached out to? If she was in crisis, and her husband didn't believe her or didn't care, then why didn't she reach out to anyone else? Police didn't say she did. I find this important considering the timeline given in the case. Police say she texted Brian all week, arguing about the fact that he was gone. That's 1 week. Then he left for the second week, and that's when she told him that she was going to kill herself, and he was going to come home to a corpse. And police do not say he returned home after receiving that message. So an entire week of her arguing with him didn't bring him home. Then an outright threat didn't bring him home. At that point, she knew he didn't care and wasn't going to react to it. She even said in her text that nobody cares anymore. Why should she? So she's pissed that he doesn't care, even when she goes as far as to threaten to take her own life. No reports that she called her mother to tell her mother she was in crisis and at her wit's end. No reports from her stepson's bio mom saying that she called her to say that she needed to come get her boys because she was going to kill herself. Nothing. Just her threat to her husband that he doesn't even react to. She doesn't tell him she's going to kill all his boys, does she? 'Cause I bet he would have reacted to that. No desperate call to her mother saying I'm losing my mind and I think I'm going to kill the boys if someone doesn't come get them right now. No call to her stepson's mother to say you better come get your kids because if you don't, I'm going to kill them. No mention of killing the kids at all. But no one cares. They would have cared if she said she was going to kill the kids. But she didn't. Because I don't think she was planning on killing the kids. Not until she told Brian she was going to kill herself, and he didn't care. That had to hurt. So, what do I think? I think she stewed about it the whole next day. Then, I think she decided that if he could hurt her like that, she could hurt him too. I think that's when she decided to kill the kids. She had 2 days, from the time she threatened to take her own life until the time she committed the murders. 2 days to plot, 2 days to plan, 2 days to execute. She also had 2 days to call her husband to let him know to get his ass home before she killed his kids. But she didn't. Because the damage was already done, and she had already made up her mind to hurt him in the worst way possible. She even wrote notes during the 2 days, instructions for everyone. She even wrote her will. She wrote, "To whomever finds this first, you'll need to call Brian Baumgartner. He's the husband and father." So she's instructing someone to call him to tell him she's murdered his children, but she never called him to tell him she was going to murder his children. She wrote, "You'll need to call Raven. for she is mother of Sean and Riley. Why didn't she call Raven and tell her to come pick up her kids before she killed them? She wrote, "If someone would please call my mother, tell her I'm sorry." Why didn't she call her mother to tell her she was going to kill the kids if she didn't get any help? Then she outright confesses. This is no one's fault but my own. My demons won over me, and there's no going back. Sorry, I wasn't strong enough. Thank you. XOXO. Interesting. In her letter to Brian, she even recognizes that she committed an evil crime. She wrote, "I'm sorry for my evil crime. I was not strong enough to fight these demons." So, she's saying her demons wanted her to commit this evil crime, and she couldn't fight them, but she never mentioned it. She never let anybody know. She never told anybody that she felt she was battling demons who wanted her to kill all the kids. Nothing. She's fully aware that she's committed an evil crime, which she outlines in her confession. She says she's battling demons, and she gives full instructions to first responders about who to contact, their relationship to the victims, and leaves a message for her mother. Doesn't sound to me like the broken mind of an irrational person who is suffering a psychotic break. Her planning was very detailed. She was very thorough. Very calculated. But then why didn't she stick it to Brian in her letter to him? Why didn't she blame it all on him? After all, she had been arguing with him about it for over a week, and he wasn't doing anything about it. She even said he didn't care. But she didn't blame him. She blamed herself, which makes no sense to me. She did all the arguing, all the decision making, the planning, the execution, but she got to the grand finale, where she got to let the world know what drove her to it, and she just fizzled out. Why? Or was she just letting her work speak for itself? Because he already knew why. I wonder, why didn't she kill herself inside the house with the boys? Why was she the only one found outside? Could it be so he'd have to see her dead? See what he did to her? Her body wouldn't be burned from being in the fire, so he'd probably see her. Maybe have to identify her. Maybe she wanted the memory of her like that seared into his mind forever. After all, he didn't seem to believe she'd do it, and maybe she just wanted him to see it for himself. Just my thoughts. I pray for the loved ones of the children, that they find the strength to get through this. They're only 1 month out, and they still have forever to go. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you on my next video.